Blackwoods, The Beginning. Written by Teresa J. Martin and Adaline Mcmillan. Narrated by Kieran Flitton. Prologue. The man walked briskly toward the place he was being drawn to. The place he'd left his family for. That thought caused pain to rise in his chest. He wanted nothing more than to be with his wife and daughter. But the pull to this place was too strong to ignore. He didn't want it to be, but he couldn't help it. He knew when he met the boundary. When he crossed it, he fell to his knees, pain shooting through his head. His eyes burned like they were on fire. His pulse sped up and sweat broke out all over his skin as power radiated from him. He did his best not to scream, but he wasn't successful. As quickly as the pain had come, it left. He stayed crouched on the ground, trying to catch his breath. His eyes were still tingling, and his skin felt more sensitive than ever before. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw some residual glow that he couldn't explain. He blinked a few times, and it disappeared. He didn't trust himself to stand, not yet. So he just looked around. Nothing looked different, even though he knew he'd generated some kind of magical barrier. It felt different, though. The trees were humming with energy, and the ground seemed to beg him to keep going. Finally, he rose to his feet and started stumbling forward. His legs could barely hold his weight, but he kept going. He had to keep going. Before long, he was worried he'd never make it when the sight of the tree in front of him took his breath away. He'd never seen a tree so big, and he wasn't sure that another one existed. It seemed to go on forever. How had he not seen it above the canopy before? He took a step closer and was suddenly knocked back by a wave of power. He slammed into the tree behind him, falling to the ground. Another wave knocked his head into the trunk, causing him to black out for a moment. He slumped to the forest floor, heart pounding, the sound of blood rushing in his ears. Finally, after a few long minutes, the power stagnated. It was still there, but it wasn't knocking into him in steady beats of agonizing pain. Cautiously, he rose to his feet, his breathing heavy and uneven. For some reason, he had the strangest urge to touch the tree in front of him. He didn't think that touching such a thing would be a good idea, but there wasn't a cell in his body that seemed to care. Against his better judgment, he kept going until his shaking fingers brushed against the rough bark. He thought creating the barrier hurt, but it was nothing compared to this. Pain flowed through his entire body as the tree started to fall into the ground. He would have been amazed, but he was busy trying not to pass out. It picked up speed as it descended until the tree was completely gone. Silence fell over the forest, and he was left panting with the very distinct feeling that this wasn't over. He was right. Out of the massive hole in the ground, wooden planks started to unfold and create a floor underneath him. Despite the pain, he managed to jump to his feet and look around, wonder sparking in his eyes. The floor that had formed was a perfect circle. Once it was complete, cabins started to build themselves, encircling the courtyard. The cabins were perfect spheres, something he'd never thought possible. Once they were perfectly formed, a circular wooden slab rose out of the ground in the very center of the courtyard, just where the tree had disappeared to. Around it, a perfectly smooth bench spun up from the ground, encircling the table. Finally, the forest fell quiet. 1. Claire darted through the woods, branches snapping beneath her feet. She couldn't believe how clear the air felt, and she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She never imagined that trees would be so tall and so green, with bark that was almost black. Green wasn't a color Claire saw very often. In her home city of Everton, everything was in shades of grey. As she ran, she came to a clearing, her heart skipping a beat when
Sample complete. Ready to continue?